Going from microcosm to macrocosm, we're talking about intellectual and moral bankruptcy of particular people in the vegan movement. And, we telescope out, look at it at a bit of a bigger scale, and we talk about the intellectual and moral bankruptcy of veganism as a movement on the whole. Responding here to, in part, some of the stupidest things vegan gains have said to me this week. I'm going to talk a little bit about some thoughts I had when watching a video from Kristen Leo and when watching some commentary from the indefatigable Maddie Lymburner and her boyfriend, who's known as Maddie Lymburner's boyfriend. Let's be real. Does he even have a name? I think it's Kyle or some shit. Whatever. Nobody has ever referred to me as Melissa's boyfriend. I'm not known as, oh yeah, you know that guy, Melissa's boyfriend? No. So, hey, feather in my hypothetical cap there. Both Kristen Leo and Maddie were responding to the, controversy of the day, which is the fall from grace of Bonny Rebecca. Partly, this is being discussed because people actually have original and meaningful things to say about it. And let's keep it all the way real, people. People are partly just talking about it because it's an opportunity to sharpen your knives. It's an opportunity to dust off that old sense of moral superiority. Oh yes. Hey, who wants to sit down and talk about somebody who's accomplished way more in their lives than us and who sets a really high standard for moral conduct and accomplishments? And who wants to make a video about someone they have so much respect and admiration for their intellectual accomplishments or the moral stand they took on an issue or what they've accomplished doing humanitarian work? Nope. Who wants to heap scorn on Bonny Rebecca? Let the whole world know how morally superior they are for what trite and trivial reasons. People are lining up for that, and obviously the audience is lining up to hear it too. So there's money to be made in telling people things they already want to hear, and that's what about 8/10 of YouTube is all about. By the way, guys, just real briefly on that. I've always said this. I'm proud when my videos have an equal number of thumbs up to thumbs down. I think that's normally when you're riding the edge of challenging your audience just enough. If you're at about 80% thumbs down, maybe stop and reevaluate. But I think getting a lot of thumbs down is actually a really good thing because you're not just telling people something they already want to hear. All right, so I'll give the link below if you want to see on screen exactly what it was Vegan Gains said and exactly what I said in reply to him and what I assume or even what I hope is the last conversation I ever had with this guy. But you guys already know I was pushing him on the issue of having a meaningful life. And he really did not want to reply to that. He really didn't want to deal with the question. I was talking to him about having a morally upstanding life. I was talking about having an intellectually rewarding life. Moving forward positively. And kind of the last dodge or deflection he engaged in was instead trying to answer about how much money he makes. How he makes more money than I do, which is just misdirection. It's just not the topic of conversation. Do you want to go into real estate? You can make a lot more money in real estate than on YouTube, but that's not what we were talking about, We were talking about the difference between leading a meaningful life and a meaningless one and how to grow older. How to grow wiser while growing older instead of just playing video games and living a kind of self-indulgent life and this kind of thing. Anyway, so he finally did answer the question of what kind of person does he want to be in 5 to 10 years and how's he going to get there by just bragging about how much money he makes and by claiming that playing video games is justified because you can make so much money doing it. And this was my reply. Quote, "Does anyone here think that Vegan Gains would make less money if he actually followed the advice set out in this video? Would he receive less in donations if he directly imitated the 2 examples set out in the video of people who engage in humanitarian work with Syrian refugees? Do you think he'd become a worse person if he started caring about the real world in terms of reading and learning, not just humanitarian engagement, as opposed to playing video games?" Anyone? So there were a lot of funny little ironies built into this. I know Vegan Gains has wanted to talk tough about Islam in the past. He's wanted to offer a very harsh criticism of Islam. Well, he could, especially from his position of privilege, frankly, in terms of his level of fame and income from, sharing his opinions on the internet. He could have raised money and gone over and got involved and done humanitarian work in, really anywhere in the Muslim world. He could have gone to Afghanistan or what have you, and he could have started producing much more well-informed, deep, and profound reflections on, the cultural effects of Islam and what's wrong with it and the knock-on effects it has on people's lives, whether it's on people's psychology, education, gender roles, or what have you. I know he made videos in the past in a really shallow way, just heaping scorn on Islam. Go out there, live with it, see what it does to people, and, try to make a positive difference. He could have gotten involved with, I'm just saying, he's also heaped scorn on feminism, in a really shallow way. Well, you could put those two together. What about getting involved with women's education in Afghanistan? I.e. trying to oppose the tendency of the Taliban and other Muslim extremists, their tendency to exclude women from having access to education, to actually getting out and fighting for women's equality through education, whether in Afghanistan or whatever, anywhere in the Muslim world. What about, again, if he came onto that? I don't think anyone could say that Vegan Gains would have less public support and less interest if he actually did take on a sincerely humanitarian engagement with the Muslim world. Syria happened to be the example we talked about. Now, this takes me to the main topic I want to discuss in this video, which is hope. And when Vegan Gains first came on the scene, I remember him being interviewed, actually by a huge range of people. I remember him being interviewed by The Amazing Atheist on his show that was then called The Drunken Peasants. I remember him being interviewed by Happy Healthy Vegan. When Vegan Gains first achieved a certain level of fame, there was real excitement attached to hope, right? And the hope was that he was going to play some kind of positive role in leading the vegan movement. And instead, what we've all learned with the passage of time and repetition is that there is no hope. He is never going to do anything positive for anyone. As I just discussed with him, face to face, it was just in written format going back and forth. He is never going to do anything but sit in his ass and live a life devoted to short-term self-indulgence, playing video games, whatever makes him feel happy in the moment. He doesn't even have the level of self-discipline and vision to take filmmaking seriously, to become seriously interested in comedy or filmmaking or script writing. I started talking to him years and years and years ago. He and I first talked when his channel was really small. So I already knew not to have that hope. I knew he wasn't going to get serious about activism or political leadership. But at an earlier stage, I did wonder if he was going to get more interested in being a creative artist, probably because he has a background in photography. I thought once he had some more money and once he could devote all of his time to being creative on YouTube, I thought he might get more serious about filmmaking. Actually having proper actors and lighting and scripts and everything. But no, there's absolutely no reason to hope for anything positive from this guy. And just now in this debate with me, he's dug himself in and said that he has absolutely no interest in doing anything for anyone other than himself, and he has no interest even in developing himself into a better person, doing anything other than being self-indulgent. So I watched this latest video from Kristen Leo. Kristen Leo, who has jumped on the bandwagon of people condemning Bonny Rebecca for leaving veganism, quitting the diet, leaving the movement, and going back to eating meat. Kristen Leo's analysis really focuses on the concept of stress. And then, what's the opposite of stress, or what's the alternative? Relaxation, taking it easy, maybe even not caring, indifference. And Kristen Leo says, correctly in a sense, but I'm here to disagree, she says, well, most of these mysterious health problems people are talking about, they actually can be attributed to stress. So indigestion, acne, or what have you, and they can be alleviated by alleviating the underlying stress. This is, I think, going down a false rabbit hole. Does anyone believe that eating chicken eggs is the cure for acne? And if you did believe that, what would be the scientific basis for it? Like, unless you actually believe that acne is caused by a lack of cholesterol, and that getting cholesterol from eggs cures acne, it's completely surreal. Does anyone believe that eating fish cures acne? Or if we get into thick nuts, it's a little bit ridiculous, I think, to cross swords with these ex-vegans on that level, to presume that you can actually treat any of these illnesses, or sometimes they're not even illnesses, but whatever, perceived sources of distress through eating chicken, fish, or any other kind of animal product. However, what I thought was interesting was just thinking about the problem in terms of stress and the alleviation of stress. And for me, on the contrary, I think the real issue is hope. That's why I link this to this discussion of vegan gains. People evaluated the good and the bad of vegan gains in a framework, ultimately, of hope for something better in the future. Back in the day, it was like, well, yeah, he's waving knives around on camera. He's waving guns around on camera. He's making violent threats. He's sometimes saying extremely disturbing things politically, but there's hope. Then at some point, when the hope goes away, you regard all those things quite differently. When there's no hope. Oh, okay, so this guy is just a parasite on the vegan movement. He's just a blade in the vegan movement. He's really just making, I hate to say it, he is just making veganism look bad. It's not going anywhere, not even on a creative level in terms of filmmaking, not on a level of his personal development or him getting an education and moving forward. Now we start to evaluate all those things differently, and you look back at it and you think, well, what was I thinking? to be blunt, right? People endure all kinds of suffering and sorrow and stress in relation to some particular objective, to some hope. When I moved to Cambodia, I think this is true also on the level of romantic relationships. Like, you put up with your boyfriend, but you're supporting him while he finishes his degree in university, or something. Things are linked to particular ideas about career, or maybe that you're going to get pregnant and have a baby, whatever it is. You're thinking about some kind of future, and then you evaluate what's going on in your relationship differently relative to that hope. And then if that hope disappears, you look back at all the time spent in that relationship very, very differently, right? Seeing the reaction of my girlfriend's face here, just off camera. She knows what I'm talking about, maybe a little too well. When I moved to Cambodia, I was willing to endure all kinds of stress and danger. Cambodian's a hell of a hard language to learn. I had 3 whiteboards. So if you don't, whiteboard is the opposite of a blackboard. It's with big markers you're on. I had 3 big whiteboards, and they were actually on wheels. So you could wheel them around the apartment. So I wanted to have it in the kitchen, in the living room, the bedroom. Those were all the rooms I had in that apartment. Of the 3 rooms, I had 3 big whiteboards set up. So I would practice and study Cambodian, writing things on the board, and then I could see the board when I was eating breakfast. The number of hours you put into, that I personally put into, the level of stress just in dealing with the language. In Cambodia, I knew one person personally who was robbed at gunpoint on the street, the same street I walk down every day, and the gun went off. The gun was fired. Gunshots were fired in the air and stuff. So strong arm, gunpoint robbery. You heard gunshots going off. When I was up on the rooftop of my building doing my email, there was Wi-Fi on the rooftop, not in the room. So you'd go up to the rooftop. You'd hear gunshots going off in the city. So, some of the danger was not imaginary. And I didn't earn enough money to take taxis. I'd walk everywhere. I'd walk to work with my umbrella in the torrential rain. That was real torrential rain, where some streets could be under a meter of water. If you stayed in the main highway, it was on an embankment, so you'd be a few inches above the water, the rain pouring down on you. And then other days, it would be the burning heat pouring down. You'd have the umbrella up for that too. I endured a lot of stress, right? Stress justified by and linked to hope. Hope to make the world a better place. Hope to do, I was, in a sense, doing humanitarian work. I was, in a sense, making the world a better place. I was also doing research. I was learning. In some ways, I was becoming a better person. There were positive elements, in the present tense, but there's also the hope and aspiration for the future. I never wanted to go back to Canada. I didn't want to build a life in Canada. I wanted to build a life in Cambodia, in Southeast Asia, develop that position. And then when that hope was crushed, when you give up on Cambodia, when it's gone, you look back on those years of your life and think, wow, what was I doing? Everything I poured into that, and it's all lost. So my point is here, I do actually think Kristen Leo is, in a sense, wrong, in a sense, just incorrect. Looking at these problems and people quitting the vegan movement in terms of stress. People quit the vegan movement because they lose the hope that justifies that stress. And they lose the hope partly because they're disillusioned with people like Vegan Gains. Believe me, I saw it happen on a huge scale before, with people being disillusioned with During Rider, Freely. I've seen people disillusioned with Gary Francione. I've seen people disillusioned with Gary Yourofsky. It really can be disillusionment with the leaders. It can be also disillusionment with the diet, that they believe the diet would cure cancer, that the diet would make them thin, beautiful, would give them perfect skin, perfect digestion, whether it's shallow or deep. People get disillusioned with the health claims. People get disillusioned with the political program of veganism as a movement. People do get disillusioned with particular leaders. And then when you lose that hope, then the stress you engage in ceases to be justified, right? So, and now just as a kind of comedic ending to this video, what was the deal with Maddie Lymburner and her boyfriend? Well, they came on camera, and to Maddie's surprise, they did a spontaneous video. Her boyfriend said that he agreed with Bonny Rebecca, that if it would make him feel better, this is really a direct quote, he said if it would make him feel better, he would eat animal products, he would eat meat or fish or eggs. So that's, I think, the ultimate absurdity. But that is, he's correctly identifying what's going on here. Nobody even debates or disputes the question, would you take a pill of legitimate medicine if it happened to contain animal products and you needed it to live, you needed to treat a disease? I've been in that position repeatedly. The most memorable maybe was having to get vitamins for my infant daughter when my daughter was a newborn baby. We worked really hard to try to get vitamins, because there are certain vitamins, like I think even you're legally required to. Okay, you're supposed to provide them to a baby. It's required when they're a newborn, and we worked really, really hard to try to get a vitamin that had zero animal products. But what we ended up giving her had a tiny, tiny amount of vitamin D extracted from sheep's wool. It's a byproduct of sheep's wool. So it's actually like the guck. It's like the sweat that's on the sheep's wool at the time the sheep's wool is shaven. They take that off and they extract vitamin D from it. We really tried. We really went around and asked in a bunch of alternative medicine shops and just normal pharmacists too, saying, look, do you have any of this type of special vitamin? Primarily it's sold for babies, but some adults use this type of vitamin also. That does not, and we couldn't. Bottom line was, okay, we need this, so the baby is going to eat a trace amount of sheep wool extract because we couldn't do any better. I've mentioned before also, it's never been that the animal product was intrinsic to saving my life or something, but you can have prescription medicine you really need, and the capsule has gelatin or even has honey as an additive, this kind of thing. It's not that the honey cures you, but it's in the pill and you can't get the honey. You can't get the pill without the honey and this kind of thing. Nobody is debating that, right? The reality is that what we're debating are not real cures for real diseases that contain animal products. It's people chasing a feeling. It's that you think it would make you feel better if you eat fish. You think it would make you feel better if you eat an egg, or maybe it's meat or milk or whatever it is in your case. And the very fundamental question is, are you living for feeling good? Is that what your life is about? Or is your life about doing what's right and doing what's wrong? And for me, this brings me back to this leitmotif that Vegan Gains is an idiot, that Vegan Gains is morally and intellectually bankrupt. Because that is the philosophy of Vegan Gains, right? Is doing whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. And if that's playing video games for 3 hours a day, whatever it is, living a life of total self-indulgence. That is living a life for feeling.
Except that he is vegan.
Well, yeah, this is true. Sure. Well, no, okay, but look, this is the other thing. It's a figure of speech. There is no complete self-indulgence, right? Your self-indulgence can never be complete. It's always going to be ersatz. It's always, okay, but, okay, so you chose to use eggs and fish, but you're not using cocaine. A better example than cocaine actually is Adderall. All of these problems would be solved by Adderall. Weight loss, focus, attention, feeling happy. Adderall solves it all. Adderall is modern medical science's perfection of cocaine. It's cocaine without the side effects. It's a long, sustained cocaine-like high, and it's incredibly addictive. And what most people tell you is, you want to write a novel in 6 months? Get on Adderall. You want to get better scores on the IQ test, the SAT, the LSAT, the GRE exam, get on Adderall. Adderall. Does Adderall make you superhuman, or does it make you subhuman? Okay. What is a life of complete indulgence? There's no answer. There is no complete self-indulgence, right? But the opposite. There is complete devotion to doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. There is complete devotion to doing the best you can, being devoted to make the world a better place, to being a better person yourself. And part of that is, indeed, making the commitment, hey, my life is not just about feeling good. It's not just about chasing a feeling. It's not about how I feel. It's not even just about what I know. It's about fundamental questions of right and wrong.